Okay, we're live.
But that's just it. And if I had all of that on one feed, I would never see anything because it would just
Yeah, no, that makes
like a
sense.
ticker tape.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, that
right,
makes
ticker
sense.
tape. Is that the stock thing? Is that what that's called?
Yeah,
Ticker tape.
ticker tape. Yep.
Yeah. So I split it up and plus too that allows me like um, during the off season for football, I don't have to. There's nothing to follow there, so I can just turn that one off and not even mess with anything coming through, and it helps me not prioritize but segment.
No, that makes sense. Yep. All right. Well, so we're currently live. Nobody, we don't have an audience at this point, but for anybody who might be watching this on the YouTube channel later, of course, I'm Steven. You're Ed. So we're gonna try and record 4 episodes of an audio podcast called the Superman Super Show. Yeah. I noticed that your little name tag there says Superman Novice.
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be fun. I don't consider myself a Superman expert. We will talk about how, maybe how we discovered Superman and maybe where our reading history began,
right,
and that kind of stuff when we start recording the episode. But
like I told you, I read I think the first 6 appearances of Superman in Action Comics. Those 6 stories were a significant portion of the Superman stories I have read.
all right, okay.
So
yeah, you're
I don't know percentages necessarily, but I know that probably if I tried, I would be able to count the number of Superman stories I've read.
Well, I know you said I think it was on the board, that you've always been, you kind of ignored DC.
Mm-hmm.
DC doesn't really hold a lot of interest for you.
And it's ignored. I don't know. Maybe that's harsh. I mean, it's not like I've actively done it, but you only have so much room to read.
Yeah.
And a lot of my reading for years and years has been Marvel, and it just trying to read all the Marvel stuff I want to read just takes up most of the space.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and if you're looking at stuff from other publishers, and if they're really all you have to go on is a cover and a description, and if neither of those things do it for you, then
yeah,
especially if you're, for me, myself, I read most of my comics online through the Marvel app and through the DC app, and then through Comixology Unlimited and Hoopla, which is through my library. So I say it a lot. I'm a fanboy on a budget.
Right.
And so I can't spend a lot of money on comics, and listening to the old episodes of Just Another Fanboy, I say often that, there was like 2 or 3 episodes in there in the beginning where I was doing this whole change Steven's mind. It's like, I only talk about Marvel and DC.
Right.
You want me to read something else, you got to change my mind, because right now my very small budget goes to books that I know I'm going to enjoy. And it's hard to take a chance on something, especially nowadays when they're like $5 a freaking issue, throw down $5 for an issue and go, man, that sucked.
You're not taking a chance on something, you're investing.
Right.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, I can only afford to invest so much.
Exactly. All right. Shall we start? Shall we start with episode number 1?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to start recording on my Audacity. Okay. I'm recording now. So in order to sync up the audio, I've never done this before, but I'm told that if we do a 1, 2, 3, and then both clap, that it'll make a peak in the waveform. Yeah, it'll be easier for me to sync up. So let's do 1, 2, 3. All right. We'll just take it from there and then cross my fingers. Shouldn't be too hard. I mean, I remember having to do it all the time back in the old days when you only had Skype and you had to have that particular program like Pamela for Skype to record stuff. And I always had to sync up a lot of things back then. So
I remember using Pamela. I don't even think Pamela works with Skype anymore.
Probably not. I mean, that's been 15 years ago. So
yeah, I mean, they did for a long, long time, but I think it was Skype when they got bought out by who? Google? Is that who bought Skype?
I don't know.
Somebody bought them, and I think they just said, "Clip, no Pamela."
Everything's owned either by Disney, Time Warner, or Google at this point, anyway, and Amazon. Those are the 4 big ones, basically.
Really?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I heard that Amazon just bought MGM. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which means they own the Dorothy movie, right? Basically, wasn't that MGM?
Oh, Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Boy, that's wow.
Used to be, you know, when it was just Netflix, it's like, I'm going to cancel my cable and I'm going to get Netflix. I'm going to save myself a fortune. And now it's like, well, if I want to watch stuff, I got to get Netflix and I got to get Hulu and I got to get Disney Plus and I got to get this and I got to get that. Right. And it's just.
Everybody wants you to buy theirs.
Yep.
And I believe you have mentioned, because I have thrown out there, I would love an a la carte kind of system for that stuff.
Yep.
You know, just a wholesaler where I can go one night and say, I want to watch Disney's this, buy. I want to watch Paramount's this, buy. You know, and I'm like, but somebody somewhere has got to understand that they would make more money by doing that. So why are they not allowing that to go on yet?
Yeah, and I think certain services, you know, if you go to a place like Apple TV where you can rent movies and buy digital TV shows and whatnot, I think a lot of the services do end up selling their stuff through places like that, or through Amazon Prime, or through Vudu. Netflix, on the other hand, they don't sell their crap to anybody. If it's a Netflix owned property, if it's a Netflix original, the only place you're seeing it is on Netflix.
Right. Which has a lot of good stuff. But if that's the only place that doesn't want to play, okay.
Yeah.
So be it.
Yep. Yeah. At this point, one of the main reasons I keep Netflix around anymore is because I need to get caught up on, I need to finish Supernatural.
Okay.
And it's over there. So
it's,
All right. Let's give this a try. I'll start out with the little opening.
Okay.
You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 1, Champion of the Oppressed. The Superman Super Show is a presentation of the Just Another Fanboy podcast. And then musical play. I guess we should talk about our intro here. So basically, I just have hello and welcome. I'm your host, or I'm a host. My name's Steven. 1,000 miles over there to my right is the other host, Ed Moore, and then you can say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. I like that. And then we'll just talk about for episode 1, we'll talk about who we are, how we got into Superman, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I say to my right because you're east of me, and I'm currently facing north. So you are to my right. So
okay.
All right.
I am facing. I think I'm facing east or west. No, I'm facing west-ish. West.
Gazing toward the Pacific, thousands and thousands of miles away.
Thousands.
All right. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Superman Super Show. I'm your host. My name is Steven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is the other host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Hi.
Ed, say hi. Say hi to him, Ed. Just give us a big hi.
Hi to him, Ed.
Hi to him, Ed. Hey, how about you? Why don't we take a moment here and have you go ahead and just tell everybody who you are, and why they should listen to you talk about Superman.
Okay. That's easy. You should listen to me talk about Superman because I'm better than you, and no, I'm sorry. I don't mean that. That's
I'm writing that down.
All of you AEW fans will recognize that. So, Why you should listen to me is not so much me, but because you're interested in Superman. I would think. I probably am not the most entertaining person in the world, so don't rely on me. Rely on what I'm talking about. I think there's a lot of Superman fans out there, and I have listened to podcasts since very near the beginning of the format, the medium, whatever you want to call it. And I have been recording and putting out my own since 2009. So I've there's been a lot of podcast noise go through this head over that period of time. And as far as I know, there are currently less than a handful of shows talking about Golden Age Superman, if even a handful. So, in that it's rather exclusive territory and someone out there is interested in Superman, well, let's talk about Superman, or well, rather, let's listen to someone talk about Superman from the very beginning, which is not really what you hear talked about anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Stephen, one of the hot things for podcasts is the new hotness, whatever it might
The
be.
new hotness. Yep.
Movies, movie related shows. I mean, we've got Moon Knight coming up. We've got Morbius coming up. We've got those books are just shooting off the shelves right now, and everybody's
Yep.
standing in line to talk about them. Superman has been around since since way before me. So just a couple years, but that's way. So this Golden Age stuff, it okay. If you've never read Golden Age comic books, they have a rhythm all to their own. They are very distinctive. You can certainly tell reading a Golden Age book compared to the Superman that came out halfway through last week. Vastly different writing, vastly different art. That just other than the word Superman, they pretty much are two completely different things.
True.
So it to me, I read plenty of contemporary comic books. I enjoy something that is not. Um, Currently, a lot of my time is taken up with my favorite time period, which is the uh, late 70s through the 80s to the early 90s. Indie, or well, not Marvel or DC stuff. That's stuff that really has my imagination going right now.
Mhm.
This Golden Age stuff is even different from that. So,
Yeah.
why listen to the show? Don't listen to it for me. Listen to it because you like Superman and you're interested in Superman from the very beginning, which we both have noted and we will bring up is very different from what Superman is now.
Yeah.
And
Very
I
different.
think that's a good reason to listen. How about you?
So,
What do you think?
well, how long have let me ask you a couple
Okay.
questions. How long have you been reading comics?
Since I was quite young, probably 70. Let's see. I moved to West Virginia in 75 when I was 7. So since I was 6, I just turned 54. So that's what, over 45 years, roughly?
You're not that much older than me. I turned 50 this year.
Okay.
Um, I've been reading since the early 80s, so not quite as long as you.
Okay.
And I have found for myself that I have had a couple of periods that I haven't been reading comics straight through since the early 80s. I
Mhm.
had periods in the 90s and sometime around 2009, 2010 where I just stepped away for a few years and then eventually got back in. But what are some of the podcasts that you're
Um,
on? Spotlight a couple of them for us.
right now, I have 3 that are pretty consistently coming out. I've got The Ronin Rabbit, which is one about Usagi Yojimbo, who is his stuff is coming out from IDW right now, and it's in color. But traditionally, up until the last 20, roughly 30 issues of I don't know, almost 200 has been in black and white.
Mhm.
So his creator's transition to IDW is now in color. Well, there was a time period where they came out from Mirage, the same company that does Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
Those were color too. but otherwise everything else has been in black and white. That comes out once a month. I've got the Mighty Thorcast. The Ronin Rabbit I do solo. I've got the Mighty Thorcast, which I think is kind of on hiatus because we're having some website issues currently. That is my wife and I talking about Thor, Marvel's Thor. Every episode we talk about an old book, which is the original volume that started back in 66, 68, something like that. And a newer book, which will be stuff like the female Thor and the not worthy Thor lately and Jason Aaron and all that kind of stuff.
Fun.
I'm also doing Lords of Order, which is a DC's Dr. Fate podcast. I do that solo. And after a lengthy hiatus, I just got into non-Golden Age stories for Dr. Fate. The first volume, let's say, of that show, the first, 60 to 70 episodes were one Golden Age story per episode. Very similar to what we're doing here, only with Dr. Fate. And my newest one is probably the one I'm most hyped about right now. I'm calling Newsprint Commando, where I'm talking about those books from the 80s that I mentioned earlier that really are in my imagination. And I just finished up talking about books on that show from Capital Comics, which were Nexus, Badger, and a female ninja called Whisper. So I finished that up, and I'm getting ready to move to another company because actually that was all the books Capital Comics put out. They were a distributor. They played for a little while. I found it for whatever reason not to their liking and got out of making the books and went back to just distributing them. So I have another company already set up for that I'll start recording about here next. But those are the current shows that I've got coming out right now.
You're also the co-host of Boom Addiction with Chris Parton.
Yes,
we're all about Boom Studios comics,
and that's it. Just Boom. We focus on that company's books.
Yeah, it's a good show, and I think you guys are maybe the only ones doing that.
About Boom or about one company? Yeah,
well, about Boom,
yeah. As far as we know, I mean, the popular books, will come up in some other shows where people talk about the new hotness that I referred to. But we talk about all of them, the kids books and the middle age books and the adulty books. And
they got some good stuff. Good stuff. I like listening to your show because you guys often turn me on to books that I may not have noticed. And then I often will find them over on the Hoopla so I can read them for free. Thanks to our public library system.
All right.
Which is a wonderful system. All right. So for myself, I am the host of the Just Another Fanboy podcast. I do a couple others, but I haven't put out any episodes in a great long while. So I'm really focused on Just Another Fanboy at this point. I actually started that back in 2006, recorded for 3 years, maybe, I think 130 some episodes, and then just walked away and didn't podcast for until 2019.
Would that qualify as a mic drop? After this,
a mic dropped and then picked up again 15 years later.
Right? Yeah, much later. But you're like 3 years mic drop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of it was kind of pointed out to me that I was not spending a lot of time with the family, and I had little kids at the time, and I was not I was being an idiot. So now they're teenagers, they don't need me. So
I have the benefit of being in that position. I have two sons. One was born in 95, one in 97. I'm not even sure they know my name anymore. So, I have spare time. It's cool.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna just talk a bit about how I got into Superman.
Okay. Or here, let me set it up.
Okay.
So, Steven, thank you for inviting me on the show today. Long-time listener, first-time talker. You say that that you are a Superman fan. Why don't you tell us your Superman origin story?
You know, the first time I was introduced to the character of Superman was on the Super Friends. I don't know, my memory doesn't go back that far to know which season, because it was almost like a different show each season. There were like 4 or 5 seasons. But I just remember, of all the characters on the Super Friends, you know, I thought Batman was pretty cool and Wonder Woman was cool. You know, I liked all of them, but there was just something about Superman, how he was well, first of all, he was the most powerful character on the show. There was a time where he actually, I couldn't tell you what episode it was. I couldn't tell you why he did it, but he moved the Earth it was either out of orbit and he moved it back into orbit. In being animation, it was really funny because he's standing there on the ground and he's basically like, I'll take care of this. And he flies out into space, turns around and grabs the atmosphere basically and pushes the Earth back into place. So instead of just doing like a handstand where he was, he goes out and grabs the atmosphere, which even as a kid, I'm like, I don't think that's the way it works. I had no problem with him moving the Earth, but the way he did it, that's not how it works, Superman.
Too much suspension of disbelief there. It's
exactly. So Superman, I have always claimed that he is my favorite superhero. He's my top number 1, with Spider-Man coming in at number 2. But if you're listening to the podcast now and you look at our podcast art, there's a little dude right in the middle of that podcast art holding up a Superman shirt, and that's me back in the early 80s, late 70s, with my first Superman shirt. Really excited about it. As far as Superman in the comic books, I didn't start reading Superman until John Byrne's Man of Steel. When John Byrne came on in 86 and rebooted DC Comics, I was reading some Marvel back then. My older brother, was buying comics. I think he worked at a comic book store at the time. And he would he'd get his weekly comics and he would read his comics, and then he would lay them out on the steps that led up to his bedroom. It's like, these are the ones you can read tonight. And that's how I kind of got into comics and started reading Superman. And then I read a lot of, I didn't get that far in the John Byrne run back then, probably because my brother stopped buying them. But once I started purchasing my own books, I got back into Superman in the 90s, basically around the time that just before he was going to die. And so I was there for that, and then was just kind of in and out. I remember Kurt Busiek coming on at one point, and I was just kind of back and forth. But what made me want to do this is because I thought to myself, all right, you claim that Superman is your top number 1 favorite superhero, but you've never read his origin. You've never read Action Comics number 1. You've never read any of these Golden Age books. You never read any of these Silver Age books. So let's put your money where your mouth is, and let's start reading this stuff. And it's been kind of an eye opener, compared to who he was on the Super Friends to who he was with John Byrne, and now the original Superman from Action Comics number 1, which is when we get into some of these issues, it's pretty funny. It's pretty crazy.
It is
some of the stuff he does. And I know we talk about Golden Age comics, and I know that for a lot of comics back in the Golden Age, there was a period where some of these books just really sold. I mean, they just made bank off of some of these books. And so a lot of these publishing companies who may not have even been doing comics at the time, they're like, we got to start doing comics. Let's make our own version of Superman. And there was just they didn't care what the story was about. They didn't care if it made sense. They didn't care if it had a beginning, middle, and end. It's like, got a colorful character with a kick, get him out there and we'll sell some copies. And you kind of, when we start talking about issue number 1, you almost get almost a sense of that. But as we move forward, at least I read the first 4 issues. You said you told me earlier you read the first 6. And whereas 1 and 2 are kind of, there's a connective story that the end of 1 continues into issue 2, but then issue 3 and 4 are kind of one and done. And I'm assuming they go that way for a while. But
well, even issue 1, that connection with issue 2 is kind of tenuous. I mean, it's there, but it's like
yeah,
it's not like what we're used to.
right.
The next book picks up where the prior stopped, and
Yeah.
that's how we read, now. It's like this one off, here, but this path that he didn't take is the one that leads to 2, and so yeah, it was kind of odd.
So, with this first episode, the plan is we're going to look at one issue per episode. We're starting with Action Comics #1. We're actually both, at the moment, we're reading these through a collection called Superman in the Golden Age. And we're starting with volume 1, which collects the Superman stories from Action Comics 1 through 19. It also includes selections from Superman 1 through 3, as well as the issue New York's the New York World's Fair comic issue #1. And I have to admit, when I saw selections
Mhm.
from Superman 1 through 3, I kind of jumped forward and I looked at Superman issue #1 on the DC app. And it basically has a lot of stuff that was in Action Comics #1 and 2 and whatnot. So I think they're just pulling stuff out that they hadn't already, that wasn't reprinted.
Right, yeah, that's what I noticed too, is I looked a little bit ahead just to see, and, I didn't look specifically to figure it out, but I see
Yeah.
that at least issue 1 of the Superman titled book, is mostly reprints of these Action Comics. I don't know to what extent or anything
Yeah.
like that yet, but
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find out. That'll be the fun thing about this. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in each episode, but we talk about how different Superman was then to what he is now. So it'll be kind of fun to see when they introduce certain elements that we know now, if and when they introduce them, as we're reading, if we get that far. This will be kind of the whole point of this show, is how far are we going to get, before we just decide that's too much. That's just too much Superman.
we're
But
gonna get to Brian Michael Bendis, man,
oh
all the
boy,
way.
you know what? I have tried to read his. Of course, he comes on and he does his first thing he does is a mini called Man of Steel, and I've tried to get into it a couple of times, and I'm really kind of hit and miss with Brian Michael Bendis. Some of his
Yeah,
stuff I really like. Some of his stuff I just roll my eyes at and just like, come on, stop trying to be so clever.
so am I.
And yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how far we get. But in preparation for the episode, before we talk about Action Comics #1, I got some history of how Superman came to be and how Action Comics #1 came to be. I'll be honest with you, I didn't work really hard getting this research. I just went to Wikipedia because
Well, you don't have to try real hard. There's a lot of stuff out there, and if you really look at it, it's the same stuff,
yeah,
just put together by somebody else, and so a lot of it, you'll probably read 10 things, and 80% of it'll be exactly alike. Uh, you know, 15% of it'll be questionable, and then 5% is different, and so it's
yeah.
actually new each time. So
Yeah, now if I was doing like an essay type podcast on the history of Superman, then sure, I'd go out and read a bunch of the
yep.
books on Superman and listen to podcasts and find interviews and all that junk. But yeah, I just went to Wikipedia.
Right. This is a hobby. It's not a job.
Yep,
We both have one of those job things, so
that's
it's
right.
yeah,
That's right.
it's not what we're about.
We have a job and we have a home life.
Yep.
So, and tons of other comics we want to read.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. All right. So Superman, of course, first appeared in Action Comics #1, which was published on April 18th. In 1938, was created by writer Jerry Siegel and artist Joe Shuster. They met in 1932 in Cleveland, Ohio, in high school, Glenville High.
Cool.
And at the time, Siegel was writing science fiction stories, which he self-published as a magazine called Science Fiction: The Advanced Guard of Future Civilization, which is a pretty hefty title.
It is. It is.
Schuster would provide illustrations for his stories, And in one of the magazines in January of 1933, Siegel wrote a story called The Reign of the Superman, in which Shuster provided some illustrations. This Superman was a homeless guy named Bill Dunn. Shuster drew him as a bald man. Yeah, he was homeless, and he was basically bamboozled into taking an experimental drug by an evil scientist, which gave him mind control powers. He could also read minds, and he could see a bit into the future. Now, this Superman, unlike the one we have today, who is a hero and fights crime and saves the world, this one used his new powers to make money. He was a bit of a villain.
Now, don't you think most people in his situation would probably do that as well?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think honestly,
I think that's what's so great about Spider-Man's origin, is because that is exactly the first thing he did. And if it wasn't for the fact that he let that guy go, who then ended up killing Uncle Ben, he'd probably still be doing all that today.
He'd still be a wrestler. And yeah.
I like it because it's not just, I've got superpowers, so I have to go out and fight crime. No, it's a very moral type of story. It hammers home the whole with great responsibility, or with great powers comes great responsibility. All right. So eventually, Siegel and Shuster, they set their sights on doing newspaper comic strips. And in doing so, they revisited the Superman character. And so he changed a bit the second time. Just a bit. Well, this guy, he also got his powers from an evil scientist, but this time he had super strength and bulletproof skin, and he fought crime, because apparently a lot of the newspaper strips at the time featured heroes, and they wanted their Superman to be a hero, but they kept getting rejected from various publishers. And so Jerry Siegel just assumed that the reason that they kept getting rejected was because both he and Joe Shuster were unknowns in the business. So he actually stopped working with Joe Shuster, who was so angry over this that the Superman story they wrote, they actually wrote a little comic book that was, I don't know if it was ever published, but it featured their second version of Superman, who had the super strength and the bulletproof skin. Shuster was so angry about it that apparently he burned the only copy in existence, except for the cover, which you can find out on Wikipedia. But Siegel began sending scripts with the Superman ideas to artists. And the first script he sent out, Superman changed yet again. He was a guy who came from the future, and everybody in the future had superpowers. But at some point in the future, the Earth explodes. Superman escapes this by getting in a time machine and traveling back to, well, his past, their present, which would be like 1934.
Right.
And of course, once he arrives in 1934, he uses his powers to fight crime, which sounds a lot like Booster Gold to a certain extent.
Well, it's also starting to sound a lot like Superman, little by little.
Yeah, we got
we're getting there.
The world is exploding, and he goes to a different world, basically.
Right. His superpowers and all that, not the mental powers, and he's a good guy, not a bad guy. And so, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
We're
so then another script that he sends out expands on it even more and changes it a bit more, and we get even closer. So this is a Superman where he is from the distant future. The Earth is going to explode, and the last surviving man sends his 3-year-old son back to 1935. Okay. The time machine appears on a road where it is found by Sam and Molly Kent. They leave the boy in an orphanage, but the people there at the orphanage, they can't deal with him because he has super strength and impenetrable skin. So the Kents adopt the boy. They name him Clark, and they teach him that he must use his fantastic gifts for the benefit of humanity.
Okay.
So now we're getting even closer. Well,
sounds very familiar. Yes.
Yes. Eventually, Siegel and Schuster reconciled. They resumed developing Superman together. He now became an alien from the planet Krypton. Schuster designed the costume with the tights, the S on his chest, the underwear over the pants and the cape and all that. And then at one point, December 1937, Jack Leibowitz asked Jerry Siegel to produce some comics for an upcoming comic anthology magazine called Action Comics. And Siegel was like, all right, I'll give you some new stuff, but I'm not going to give you my Superman stories, because he and Schuster were trying to negotiate a deal at the time with McClure newspaper syndicate to put new Superman in the newspapers. But by January, the newspaper deal fell through, and Siegel was asked to pass on those Superman strips that he and Schuster had created to Leibowitz so they can look at it for Action Comics. Apparently Leibowitz and the other folks really liked them and asked Siegel and Schuster to develop the strips into 13 pages for Action Comics. And again, I didn't do a lot of research on this, but based on, we'll talk about that first story, but just kind of based on the way, even like the first page is laid out, I wonder if what they mean by that is they actually took those strips and in essence cut and pasted a lot of them and then added stuff to it to develop a
could very well be
13-page story. Yeah.
Just Drew knew maybe some sort of connecting panels, but yeah, some of those panels look exactly like something that strikes me as would be in a newspaper at that time. Certainly.
Exactly. Now, of course, originally Siegel didn't want to provide any Superman stuff to this Action Comics thing, but at this point, they were getting tired of having all their stuff rejected. So they're like, all right, let's do it. At least we'll see our Superman in print. So they submitted their work in late February of 1938. They were paid $130, which is $10 per page. And according to Wikipedia, that would be equivalent to $2,390 in 2020 money.
For just that first book.
Right. Just for that, just for those 13 pages.
I would have to say almost $2,500 for one comic book is not bad.
No, yeah, I'd have to agree. And not even a full, nowadays they're anywhere from 22 to 32 pages. And this was a 13-pager and they'd already done most of it.
Right. Yeah, really. So.
And then, of course, in early March of 1938, they signed a contract which gave away the copyright for Superman to Detective Comics, Inc., which we now know as DC, which, of course, that was the normal business practice back then. So that's a little history of how Superman came to be and how he ended up in Action Comics. And then what we're going to do is hopefully try to find out how he became so gosh darn famous.
That may be a little bit more amorphous than anything we can do. It's kind of All
right, so let's talk about issue number 1 here, and we're just talking about the Superman tale from Action Comics number 1, which, as I said earlier, was an anthology series. This story is called The Champion, or it's called Champion of the Oppressed, and I'll read you a little synopsis here. As a distant planet is destroyed by old age, a scientist places his infant son in a space capsule and launches it toward Earth. The capsule is found by a passing motorist who brings the baby to an orphanage where the child astounds the attendants with his superhuman powers. The child, who is named Clark Kent, can jump over buildings, lift enormous weights, and run faster than a freight train. Furthermore, his skin is impenetrable. Realizing that he has powers far beyond normal humans, Clark dedicates himself to serve humanity as Superman, the champion of the oppressed. Superman learns that an innocent woman named Evelyn Curry is to be executed for murder. He captures the real murderess and delivers her bound and gagged to the governor's mansion. He breaks through the door to confront the governor and convinces him to call off the execution at the last minute. At the Daily Star, where Clark works as a reporter, he's given the assignment to cover the stories about a man with amazing strength named Superman. He hears a tip about a wife beating and rushes off to cover it, then changes into Superman and stops the man before he kills his wife. Returning to the Daily Star, Superman asks fellow reporter Lois Lane out on a date. She accepts out of pity. A thug named Butch Matson tries to cut in while Clark and Lois are dancing. To protect his secret identity, Clark pretends to be a cowardly weakling. Convinced that Clark is a spineless worm, Lois slaps Butch and walks out. Enraged, Butch and his friends leave the club and take Lois prisoner. Superman spots them and gives chase, smashing the car with his bare hands. He picks Lois up into his arms and carries her to safety. She's astonished, and the next morning she tells her editor about her experience with Superman, although she's even more cold to Clark than before. Clark is given an assignment to go to San Monte, a war-torn South American republic. First, he goes to Washington, D.C., where he spies a slick lobbyist, Alex Grier, trying to convince Senator Barrows to involve the U.S. in a war with Europe. Superman grabs Grier and demands to know who he's working for. Grier refuses to talk, so Superman jumps up to the roof of the Capitol building and threatens to smash Grier to the ground. So that synopsis was taken from dcfandom.com. I'll put the link in the show notes, but what do you think about this story, Ed?
It seemed very broken to what I'm used to reading.
Right.
I'll say it that way. And with what you told us before about the origins of the character, it almost sounds like this is maybe a day or a week worth of strips for each one of these stories that we have here, because the only connection is that Superman is in them. There is nothing connecting them. As he is flying from one, he sees this and decides to take care of it, or anything. It's just he does this, he does that, he does this. So it's just, it definitely reads more than what we're looking at in the book. Something else occurred, and now it's in the book.
Yeah, it was a bit disjointed, and good Lord, so much happens in those 13 pages.
Yes.
I mean, we get his origin story. I'm looking through it right now. Yeah, the part with the woman that he is taken to the governor's mansion. It takes me a minute to realize what is he doing? He's got this freaking woman bound and gagged, and he just like, stay here, and sticks her behind a tree. And then, busts into the governor's mansion. The guy who tries to stop him is like, here, you try to get through this door. And he's like, okay. And just pushes the door off the hinges. The governor tries to shoot him, and the bullet bounces off. And then, then there's the date with Lois. There's him stopping the wife beater. There's just so much happened. It was just like bam, 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 bam. And so far, at least in the first 4 issues that I read, that breakneck pace doesn't slow down at all.
No,
it's flipping crazy. And you could almost, the thing I noticed about these Golden Age comics, and you can say the same for many decades after, you could almost read the comic without looking at the pictures and know exactly what's going on, because the narration tells you everything. It's like, just in case you're wondering if you're looking at a guy jumping over a train, the narration box will tell you that you're looking at a guy jumping over a train.
Yep.
And if you look at his power set in this issue, what's the one big thing we know about Superman that's missing from this issue?
That he can fly.
He can't fly yet.
No,
Not at
he
all.
jumps. He's like the Hulk from Marvel. He just jumps from place to place.
Which looks funny as crap. As far, you know, I always associate, with the exception of Batman, I always associate capes with flying characters. So just seeing this guy jumping around with his cape, I find it funny, because then when he finds that the guy who is bribing the politician, you know, he just picks him up and he leaps to one building, and he's dancing across a wire like a telephone wire, and
he's running the phone lines. Yeah. There's a lot of places in these first 4 issues where he reminds me a lot more of the Flash than he does of Superman. You know, because he's running everywhere, and he's running the power lines, and he's faster than a train. Well, you know, faster than a speeding locomotive. But it's all like, there's a long-standing joke about Conan from the first Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movie. You might not necessarily notice or pay attention to it, but when somebody tells you he ran everywhere, you're like, oh, yeah, he did, didn't it? He never heard of a horse. He's always walking, running everywhere. And that's the way Superman is. Even he could jump, you know, and it would be a little bit easier for him. No, he just runs everywhere.
He's like Forrest Gump. He was running. And you know, I heard, I'm gonna throw a rumor at you, because I think it will be interesting as we move forward. You know, when certain powers show up, for those of us, I think, who are familiar with the modern day Superman, there are certain things that we know: is his flight, his strength, his invulnerability, his heat vision, his X-ray vision, and even maybe his freeze breath.
Okay.
So it'll be fun to find out when all these show up. But I read a rumor, and it just dawned on me. I read a rumor a number of weeks ago, or maybe months ago, about how they decided that Superman was going to start flying. And whether or not this is true, I don't know, but it actually came from the Fleischer animated features.
Okay.
Because if you watch all the Fleischer animated features, the first few he's jumping, and then eventually he starts flying.
Yeah,
and
he flew in those.
But the first few he doesn't. And my son grew up with a videotape that had like the first, I think it was the first Fleischer animated Superman feature. And he doesn't fly at all. He jumps all over the place.
Okay.
And then I distinctly remember watching the 1978 Richard Donner Superman movie, and he comes in the room and he's like, "Oh, cool, Superman." And then when Superman flies, Simon's head just like exploded. He was like, "Oh my gosh, he can fly." Because all he was familiar with was that one cartoon. Well, I read that the animators, they either found it difficult or time exhausting to constantly have Superman bending at the knees and jumping all the time. And so they asked, "Hey, can we just make him fly?" And they were like, "Yeah, let's just make him fly." And that, again, I don't know if that rumor is true, but I read that as the first time we see Superman fly is in a Fleischer cartoon, and it's because the animators couldn't do the jumping, or the jumping looks or something. It was something about the animators and the jumping, and then they just asked the DC folks, "Can we just make him fly?" And they were like, "Sure, let's just make him fly."
Well, we just need to look up and see when he started flying in the Fleischer cartoons, what the time frame was, and compare it to what is going on in the comic. But that would be funny if now, you know, millions of years later, that's why we have Superman flying, is because the animators didn't want to draw him jumping all the time.
So if anybody can confirm that,
that would be cool.
Yeah, I have an email set up. We'll remind you what it is at the end of the episode, but it's the Superman Super Show at gmail.com. Oddly enough, Superman Super Show at gmail.com was not available. Yeah. There's
never heard of it.
Yeah, I can't find any record of a YouTube channel or a podcast or anything called the Superman Super Show, but that email was taken. I think somebody heard us talking.
Could be.
And they said they're not going to want to do the in their
we're not
email
going to
list.
pay you for it, so
Like,
you might
heck
as well
no.
just drop it. So
Heck
yeah.
no, that's right. The other thing that I noticed that is also different from then to now is, of course, the newspaper he works for is the Daily Star and not the Daily Planet where he works now.
Right.
And I don't think we're given the name of his boss in this issue. He's just called, they may call him Chief.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Again, it's going to be fun to find out when, we'll have to start making a tally as we go through. This issue is the first time the newspaper was called the Daily Planet. This is the first time we are given the name Perry White. This is the first appearance of Jimmy Olsen, that kind of stuff. Because really, all we get in this issue is Superman. We know his name is Clark Kent, and then we have Lois. We don't know who this motorist was that found him in the road and just said, "Oh, there's a baby. Let's take him to the orphanage."
Yeah.
But we'll eventually find out it was Jonathan and Martha Kent in Kansas.
We do know he also has bulletproof skin.
Yes,
that stays.
That's true.
And is it in this? And and knife proof. Dude tried to stab him and broke the knife.
That's
so
true.
We know that he has, I guess, impenetrable skin. But that doesn't necessarily make him invulnerable. So we don't know that he's invulnerable yet. But we do know he's bulletproof, and that's something that has stayed. So, but that and Clark Kent and Lois so far are constants that we can still see now.
Yes.
Everything else you've mentioned, maybe it'll change by the time we get to the Brian Michael Bendis run. Which I meant to ask, did you read the Jim Lee illustrated run of Superman?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of that storyline, but yes, I did read it at least once.
Okay.
There actually is a character in that storyline who is a mercenary who's got red hair, and his name is Mr. Orr.
Oh, just saying.
Nobody knows about my past. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
I remember running across that and going, "Holy crap. His name's Mr. Orr." But there was something else I was going to say, and now it escapes me. The reason that they give us in this issue for him having superpowers is because the people from the planet that he comes from were so highly evolved.
Right. Yes.
Nowadays, it's because of the radiation from the Earth's yellow sun.
Right.
Whereas Krypton had a red sun. And that's just been the way it's always been since I started reading Superman. So I don't know when that came into play. I've always just assumed that was a John Byrne thing, but I'm probably wrong, and people are probably listening to this and shaking their fist.
Well, we do know it wasn't that way from the beginning.
Right.
We can say that. So
it was a highly evolved species.
Advanced human development is what they even said human. They didn't say an alien race. So some of those things that you were running down as they were attempting to create him, they some of them continued to carry on, and others they changed completely or they added to it.
Right.
As they got to this.
From what I understand, a lot of the powers that he has now, they don't actually come into play. I think a lot of them are added to him during the Silver Age. I remember reading something that the Silver Age was kind of like just every issue. It's like, let's give him another superpower.
We're not going to explain it. Superman.
Yeah. It's like, we need him to figure this out. So he's got super hearing.
Right.
Or he can see through walls.
Right. We need him to see into the next room. So
he's got
we need him to
brain.
hear people in the next room. Yeah. So it's like, okay, we can do that.
And we know from Final Crisis that he has a magical singing voice.
Yep.
As I did not enjoy Final Crisis. I also enjoyed in this issue the little box there on the very first page where they give us a scientific explanation of Clark's superpowers, and they compare his jumping to the grasshopper, and the fact that he can lift so much. They compare that to the ant.
Yes,
found that enjoyable
because we know that an ant can lift a rubber tree plant.
That's right, because he had high hopes.
Indeed.
And that's all we need. And the issue ends with and so begins the startling adventures of the most sensational strip character of all time, Superman. A physical marvel, a mental wonder, Superman is destined to reshape the destiny of a world. We don't know which world. It says a world. Just
right.
Could be Saturn for all we know.
My one of the things I enjoy most when I was doing the Golden Age Dr. Fate was reading the initial narration at the beginning of every story, because it is so colorful.
Yes. And
I always heard it when I was saying it in that radio voice, as if you were listening to an old time radio show. And that's how I tried to say it.
Yep. Yep. I was doing the same thing when I was reading issues 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Looking at issue 1 here. Let me look at the opening here. Yeah. Not so much in issue 1, but starting with issue 2. Yeah. There's like, it feels like, an old radio announcer,
Yeah.
The Adventures of Superman. And I actually quite enjoyed some of the narration starting with issue 2. There was some I remember thinking that was very well written. But
it certainly adds to the flavor of these Golden Age stories. You can say whatever you want about what they thought people were interested in reading, as far as the stories and how the story progresses. But the narration could be used now for anything, for radio, for TV shows, for movies. That Golden Age comic book, even, I guess you could even call it copy, is some of the best that you will run across. It's better than a lot of the narration that I read nowadays in books,
Yep.
But yeah, I really enjoy that aspect of the Golden Age books. If nothing else about the story captures my imagination, there will be just these bits of narration throughout it that I'm like, that's a good one. Yeah,
exactly.
I like
Yep. What did you think of the art?
Excuse me. The art was passable. I've seen art that I enjoy more. I've seen art that I enjoyed far less than this. So it was, I thought that I thought that the art told just as much story as any of the narration did, moving panel to panel. A lot more movement thought in any one particular panel than a lot of stuff that you'll see today. A lot of stuff today is posing, so that they can make a poster out of it. And so whereas this has got movement lines and speed lines, and even the character appearing once and then as a ghost to simulate movement, and all these different things are used then, whereas I don't know, they've been forgotten now and they're not used as much. But I thought that there were the art was more than just passable.
It was okay. I know a lot of people tend to throw the excuse around as well as it's the Golden Age, that stuff sucks. And to them I say, look at freaking Captain Marvel by CC Beck. That is some gorgeous art.
Absolutely.
I could read that stuff all day long. It's just beautiful. But for the first issue, and again, we're going under the impression here that much of this was newspaper strips that they repurposed. So that did, I think, mess with the flow a bit. But not too bad of an issue for Superman's first appearance. He is very much in this issue the champion of the oppressed. He saves a woman's life who is going to die on a death row. He saves another woman's life from being beaten to death by her husband. Clark doesn't protect Lois, but Superman does. Yeah. And that the famous cover of Action Comics #1, where he's, crunching the car down, that comes from right inside the book. That happens right inside the book. So that's the car with all the gangsters in it. But yeah, it was enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm looking forward to moving on.
And that, I think, is probably the biggest word. A lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
It was fun. I didn't feel like I was being talked down to. It didn't feel like I was being, led by the story somewhere or anything.
Yep.
It was. And particularly this issue, because it was just Superman does. So it was like,
yep.
Okay, I got you.
Yep. Yeah, not a lot of character growth, none of that. No, not a lot of motivation, except for, just got to help people.
Well,
right?
First off, where did the girl come from on his shoulder that was bound and gagged?
I don't know, because
it was just
the
wow,
summary.
okay.
Yeah, the summary specifically says Superman learns that an innocent woman named Evelyn Curry is executed for murder. He captures the real murderess and delivers her to the and that doesn't really happen.
No,
just suddenly,
not that way.
Yeah, just out of the blue, boom, he's got this woman on her shoulder. She's bound and gagged. And again, it was such a shock, because he just sticks her behind a tree and says, "You wait here." And you're like, what the flip is going on? And you learn, of course, throughout the story that, no lead in at all. It's just like, bam, you're right in the middle of the action. And that's what storytellers do nowadays. You watch a movie, and sometimes you're just right in the middle of the action. You don't know what's going on, and you're just like, holy crap, what's going on? And you have to watch for a little bit to understand. And they certainly did that in this book. And very well too. I mean, because again, I couldn't imagine why Superman had a woman bound and gagged over his shoulder, and why he just stuck her behind a tree. It just seemed really weird.
Yep. Give him a couple panels though, and he told you all about it.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that you want to say about this issue?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much everything that I made note of.
All right. Well, let's wrap up this episode. I want to thank everybody for listening to this first episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, you can do that at the supermansupershow@gmail.com. And if you want to help the show in any way, you can rate us on Apple Podcasts, or just generally tell all your friends about us. So until next week, I'm Steven, and I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye. And here's Ed to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And then there's music, and it ends. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop my audio recording and save this file.
Okay.
Do
you want me to save it as a WAV or an MP3?
It would probably, waves are better, but
MP3s are smaller.
MP3s are smaller, so they're easier to get over to me. Yeah, an MP3 is fine.
Because actually, I mean, you can open it back up in Audacity and save it as a WAV.
Exactly. Yep.
So, right. Where do I want to put it? If I put it right here. Yeah. Okay. Superman Super Show 01. Is this 01 or is this the 0 episode? Well, we talked about a book,
yep.
So
we talked about the book. So, and I've got almost an hour of stuff recorded. So the first episode may be a bit long.
Yeah, I've got an hour 9.
Yeah. I mean, we spent the time talking about each other and then the history of Superman. We're probably going to rip through the next couple episodes.
And again, that's I think that's okay. We're talking about Golden Age, one story, anywhere from 9 to 14 pages. this is not something that we're going to be able to do with these. Let's see, where's the camera? Like, the off stage stretch. No, it can't be done with these. Superman pretends to be a football player. Well, actually, that one's pretty deep. He does a lot of stuff in that one.
And one of the things I did leave out of the history is that one of the scripts that he originally sent out to new artists, I think it was the second one, he then sent an additional thing in which Superman goes basically undercover as a football player to save another football player's life. So
he rehashes that here for what is that issue? Is that 4? Yes, for issue 4.
All right. Do you have your second audio recording?
No, not yet. It's still saving.
Okay. All right. Cool.
And let me go over here just to make sure that it did save it where I told it to. Not that has never happened before.
If all else fails, we will of course have the audio that I can pull out of this video.
Yeah. Okay, and I have started recording, and it is recording.
All right, let's good Lord, I've lost my window. There it is. I found you again. Let's do the clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. All right. So let's I guess let's just get into episode 2. I'll start it off here.
Do you want me to save on your voice and me read the synopsis for the second one?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, yeah, I can.
We should go back and forth. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of me, and nobody wants to hear.
Okay, let me get up issue 2 here. Where are you? Synopsis for Superman War in San Monte. Montu.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Monty.
Yeah, as in full. Well, no,
right.
No, not as in full.
Yeah, as in Python, just not spelled the same.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Spelled more like a guy I used to go to high school with.
Monty. Okay.
Yeah, I went to high school with a Monty.
I don't think I've ever known a Monty.
Yeah, I just know the one. All right, here we go. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 2, War in San Monte. The Superman Super Show is a presentation of the Just Another Fanboy podcast. Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Hello.
You were waving.
I was pointing over this shoulder.
It almost looked like you were waving. It's like, Ed, this is audio.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about talking about this issue. I don't know about you.
I'm still kind of buzzing after the first one. That was so much fun to read.
The first one was fun. I think in my opinion, they get more fun after that.
Oh yeah. They're starting to get their legs under them, and yeah.
There's some crazy stuff that happens in this one, and we'll talk about it when it comes up. So of course, in this episode, we're talking about Action Comics, or the Superman tale from Action Comics number 2. This is written by Jerry Siegel with art by Joe Shuster. It's entitled The War in San Monte. Action Comics number 2 was, of course, published by DC Comics, and it has a cover date of July 1938. Ed, why don't you tell us what happened in this issue?
All right. Courtesy of dc.fandom.com, which I am assuming the link will be in the show notes.
It will.
All right. We are told that Alex Grier tells Superman that his boss, who's trying to start a war, is Emil Norval, the munitions magnate. Superman pays a visit to Norval's Lexington Park estate. After dispensing with Norval's guards, Superman tells Norval that he has to join him on a ship headed for San Monte or suffer the consequences. Also on the boat are Lois Lane and mysterious traveler Lola Cortez. Good name, Lola.
Yes.
When they arrive in San Monte, Superman forces Norvell to enlist in the local army. Norvell's plan to enlist and then escape later is foiled when Superman joins the army as well. They get sent to the front lines where Superman sneaks into the enemy camp and takes a picture that he sends back to the newspaper. Meanwhile, Lola Cortez plants a document that she stole from the military in Lois Lane's room. It's discovered and Lane is placed on trial. That's using the word loosely, by the way.
Yes.
She's found guilty and sentenced to death by firing squad. However, Superman saves her in the nick of time. He also stops a man from torturing prisoners before he leaves Lois, telling her to return to America. When he returns to the army camp, he finds it being attacked by an enemy aircraft. He jumps onto the plane, causing it to crash. Norvell pleads with Superman to return him to America. He promises never to manufacture munitions again. But before they leave, Superman kidnaps the leader of the two armies and tells them to fight each other. They discover that neither army knows why they're fighting, and so they make peace. Wow. And as funny as that may sound, that is exactly what happened in the book.
It's exactly what happened in the book. And
wow.
This issue, I mean, I was sitting on the couch the other night reading this, and I was laughing out loud at some of this stuff. Okay, first off, we talked about the opening little dialogue box there that in the last episode, how immediately upon reading those, we get this like old-timey radio guy. And I want to read this first box.
Okay.
So this is, of course, continuing from the previous story where Superman had grabbed this dude, Grier, and jumped to a building, but missed. And they're falling. And that was the cliffhanger from the previous issue. So it says, as they topple like a plummet. Did I say that right? Yeah. As they topple like a plummet to the street below, 80 stories distant, Grier shrieks insanely the entire length of the building. Love it.
Yes.
So, okay. I also real quick, I want to point out one of these narration box that I distinctly remember reading, and for some reason just quite enjoying. And it was the moment where Superman goes to Grier's office, and Grier had warned his guards basically, and the guards leap out to shoot him. And the box says, instantly, several panels about the room slide aside and outstep a number of armed guards. Next moment, Superman is the center of a deafening machine gun barrage. I really enjoyed that because, first of all, just looking at the picture, yeah, you can see that he's being shot at by machine guns.
Yes.
Without that box, however, you're like, where did these guys come from? Because one moment he's just talking to Grier, and the next moment he's surrounded by guys with machine guns. Really good stuff. I also, my favorite moments in this book or in this issue, this story, him forcing the guy to join the army. That was funny.
Yes.
He gets thrown overboard by Grier's thugs, and instead of climbing back onto the ship, he just swims past it.
Yep.
And he swims to land.
He meets the ship at its destination.
Right. Right. I also just, oh my gosh, the moment where he finds the guy torturing a prisoner, and
where did they come from?
The guy goes, "Let me go. What are you going to do? Give you the fate you deserve, you torturing devil." And then he just throws him to his death, basically, because he just picks him up and throws him one-handed off into the distance. And it says, for an instant, Superman poises the torturer overhead, then tosses him away as though he were a javelin.
Yeah.
The torturer vanishes from view behind a grove of distant trees with a pitiful wail.
He's a flesh javelin.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
from freaking Superman. I mean, I
Man.
know that these characters killed, right? That's always the big argument when we see Batman in a movie kill somebody. Batman doesn't kill. Well, he killed in the Golden Age, and
Yeah.
well, but he doesn't now. Blah blah blah. But so that was fun. Him taking out the airplane in the sky was fun.
Yeah.
And then yeah, he just grabs the two leaders of the two armies and says, "Fight it out, both of you." And they're like, "We don't even know why we're fighting in the first
Yeah.
place." And
Why?
then stop your war. Okay. And that's it.
Yeah.
Again, a very short story. I didn't count how many pages.
12
so
and 2/3, just
12 and
short of
yeah.
13 pages.
Yeah. So far of these 4 issues that I've read, the last page has that little thing at the bottom. And
Yeah,
this
there'll
is
be a panel or a third of a page. Yeah.
yeah. And I think this one is I think something trying to get, I don't know if it's like a letter writing campaign to get Superman into the newspapers, but
Oh, yeah, yeah, that I think that's in this story and the next story also.
yeah. Yeah.
All American Youth.
This was a lot of fun. What you think about it?
Yes, a lot of fun. Not quite as disjointed as the first story, although internally for the story itself, it was disjointed.
Yes.
The framework was there. It was
Yes.
one frame, and it jumped in that frame, whereas for that first one, you had, like, 6 or 7 frames that were in it.
Yeah.
So, they're cohesing? Is that a word?
Mhm.
I don't know, but they're cohesing the story a little bit more, but you can tell that still there is something going on because in the story, he goes from scene to scene to scene, and there's
Yeah.
no movement between.
Yeah. Yeah. They there comes a point in comics where you got a caption box. Anytime the scene changed, they had to tell you that
Right.
we're going from Wayne Manor to the Hall of Justice. Eventually they got rid of that because I get writers thought people are smart enough to realize that we're no longer in the Batcave. We don't have
Mhm.
to tell them that. Some writers still use it, some don't. It's
Yeah.
kind of a thing. This, yeah, it doesn't use it at all. It's just, I mean, there's some narration boxes that kind of fill you in on what's going on and where he might be, but yeah, it's again just breakneck speed. The whole point of these stories is action, action, action. That's why it's called Action Comics.
Yeah.
So we're not getting really, Clark Kent's personal life. We haven't seen
Character development. It's yeah.
exactly. With the exception of a couple of scenes in these first 2 stories in the Daily Star, and of course Clark going on a date with Lois.
Mhm.
That's really the extent of any type of Clark story at all.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the way that this story flows compared to the first issue does, I think, nail home the fact that that first story was cobbled together from newspaper strips that they had originally tried to get published in newspapers. I also thought the art went up a notch in this
Okay.
issue.
Yeah.
I think he's obviously progressing. There are still, of course, moments where you're not quite sure if you're just looking at faces, you don't know who's who, but the S on his shield is it's very ambiguous. Really,
I
it's just a yellow shield with a red S.
I do like his outfit, though. There's
Yeah.
just something about the red and blue,
Yep.
which is, uh, the largest portion of the American flag, of course, and the yellow, chevron, I guess you would call it on his I just it's it's I like it. I probably really can't explain why, but I just like his outfit in these
Yeah.
first couple issues.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. There's a couple of panels where they may have forgotten to draw his cape,
It's a little,
but
shall we
yeah.
say, sketchy, no pun intended.
Yeah, that's all right. It didn't
Oh,
take me out of the story.
nope, nope, and
Um,
it adds to, for me, the charm of, this is what people had to read back, what is it, Stephen, almost 85 years ago,
Yeah.
right? 90 would be 28. So yeah, it's 85, little 86, something like that. No, not 86.
80,
I don't know. Math. I was a biology major. I
84,
didn't.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah, something. Yeah, that sounds right. Um, so I would imagine that most of the books, which there's not a plethora of comics in 1938 to choose from, so
Right.
um, they're like this. It's a very quick, fast, get it down just so people know what you're trying to do. It's not the John Byrne, Jim Lee, Whilce Portacio, hyper, uh, even JR, art. It's
Yeah.
very loose or very open, or to get it in, get it done. These people had to collect 6, 7, 8 stories worth of art, compile them in a book, get it
Yeah.
off to the printer, so it just I feel reading these books, reading these stories, and I say this having the benefit of having read already all of Dr. Fate's Golden Age stories. So, but it it just seemed like a less serious endeavor
Yeah.
that these people were doing, not in any way to diminish what was going on in 1938. It's between world wars. Crap in Europe is really starting to come down, and these men, most of these comic book creators, are either of Jewish background or are
Yep.
Jewish themselves. So they're very tuned to what their parents or their grandparents over
Yep.
in Europe are starting to have to go through everywhere. So
Yep.
it's not, they didn't have it easy, and they certainly didn't have it easy over here, and we know all of those.
Yep.
Nowadays we're getting more and more of those stories of
Yeah.
just what it was like in this country not being a white male, uh,
Yep.
for everyone. So, but I don't know. It just seems the tone of these books is just lighter. I don't
Yep.
know
Yeah.
than a lot of what I read today.
Yeah. It's very light. And it's because it's an anthology. They have to tell these little adventure stories quickly. The purpose here is not to create any kind of soap opera here. It's just, they're Superman's going to go out and right some wrongs. And
Right.
that's if anything, Siegel and Schuster they are telling lesson or stories about a man with superpowers who is seeing stuff in this world that he feels is wrong, and he does something about it. He doesn't just stand on the sidelines. He sees a bully, he's gonna intervene.
And there is no ambiguity
Right.
over who is the good guy, or more importantly, who is the bad guy.
Yep. Yep.
The bad guy is the bad guy. You
Yep.
cannot question that. So
Yeah.
that also I kind of like, because that's, I read comic books to escape,
Yeah.
and my preferred escapism is superheroes. And in
Yeah.
my superhero world, the good guy is good and the bad guy is bad, and the good guy defeats the bad guy, and it's very mm, plain. It's just
Yep.
that complicated. Good guy
Yeah.
beats bad guy. That's
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's the way these golden age, when comic books first started, that's the way they were written. You
Yep.
had your good guy, and you could look, and either you could either tell by the way they were drawn, or you could certainly tell by the way they spoke or what they did who the bad guy was. So
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
my dude is going to do something to these dudes. What's going to happen?
Yep.
So
Yeah. And I enjoy that too. I have nothing against writers using comic books to tell a bit of social commentary. I honestly don't think I would be the person I am today if it weren't for comics. I think I've learned many lessons about equality and tolerance and whatnot because of comics. But sometimes you just want to see Superman take a torturer and
that's it.
throw him
Yes.
throw him beyond the distant trees.
Flesh Javelin Olympics with
Exactly.
Superman in the lead. That's
Exactly. And they do this whole almost a side story with Lois Lane and the other woman whose name I now can't remember. Lola. And
Lola Cortez.
That really doesn't resolve itself at all. It's like Lola's there just to put Lois in danger so that Superman can save her.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, they don't prove to anybody that Lois was innocent the whole time. It's just like, nah, you're not going to shoot her. I'm just going to take her away. And done. That's it.
I know Lois didn't do this. I can stop it. And so.
Love it. Love it. Love it. By the way, sometimes you may see people walk behind me.
That's cool.
We live in a house that I say this and people laugh. And once they think about it, they go, that's a good point. We live in a house that is it's over 120 years old.
Okay.
This, my great grandmother ran the town switchboard from this house. It was originally owned by the phone company. She moved in and ran the switchboard. The switchboard is actually down. It's a really small town. We were the territorial capital of Kansas. But we have a tiny museum, and her switchboard is in the museum. But I joke all the time that this house was built before hallways were invented.
Okay.
Because there's not one hallway in this entire house.
You just go from room to room.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to get to my bedroom, my wife and I's bedroom, we got to walk through the kitchen, through the bathroom, into the bedroom. And it's not a small house. It's not a big house, but basically I'm literally sitting at the dining room table.
Okay.
So yeah. I have kids. I have 2 girls in the other room, and if they want to get into the kitchen, they gotta walk through this room.
So, fair enough. I've got we live here with a couple cats, and so it's nothing for one to jump up in my face. And
I've seen it on Boom Addiction. I've seen
it hasn't happened tonight, but
we have 2 cats, and this is the same workstation. I work from home. And one of them is often spends the day laying up on the table with me, and I have to try to arrange things so I can type on my keyboard and whatnot.
Right.
But I've yet to have one interrupt a live stream.
Well, that's good.
I'd like to show my cats off, but they
no
don't,
doubt.
They respect.
It's cute.
Yeah, they respect the live stream. They're
okay. All right.
A couple anything
things.
Else? Yeah,
yes.
Go for it.
We get Lane as Lois's last name in this story.
Really? We didn't get that in the first one?
No, it was just Lois.
I did not notice that. Wow, okay. That's
just interesting.
Lois. So okay.
So issue 2 was the first Lois Lane that we get. The newspaper changed from the Daily Star to the Cleveland Evening News in this issue.
I didn't notice that either. Wow.
And George Starr is the editor. So we get the editor's name this issue, George Starr.
I missed all of that. Sometimes I just get so wrapped up in the adventure.
And this was the first time that someone outside our cozy little group referred to this dude as Superman. That's the first time somebody called him Superman out loud.
Interesting. All right.
So those are some firsts here as we're moving on into the present of our Superman.
Yeah. Good deal. Yeah, I missed that all. Good for pointing that stuff out. I did make note that Clark Kent is given the assignment to cover this war in San Monte in the previous story. Which of course he completely ignores and goes to Washington DC instead.
Right. Yeah.
It's like he had some kind of sixth sense. Like there's something I have to learn in DC before I go to this war.
Somebody called the Superman hotline and he took that message and decided it was more important than going to San Monte. So yeah.
Well, and then he in this story he gets on the boat to go to San Monte, and Lois is there, and she basically tells him that the editor wanted her to come along as well, to cover the war, to give her feminine perspective. But
Right.
I thought it was really interesting that even though I'm sure for them at the time, I'm sure the main purpose of that is just so Lois can get in trouble and Superman can rescue her. But still,
Right.
we're seeing a female reporter that works for a big newspaper and is not just doing kitchen do's and don'ts, what the
Right.
what the
Etiquette,
housewife
the
should,
etiquette piece. And
she's covered, sure, they want the feminine perspective, but still she's covering a war.
yeah,
And
she's going to the front line, man.
exactly. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else in this issue that we feel we need to cover?
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
All right. I will wrap it up then. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, you can do that at the supermansupershow@gmail.com. And if you want to help the show in any way, you can rate us on Apple Podcasts and just generally tell all your friends about us. Just get out there, spread the word. Thunderbird. That's something I used to say on an old podcast.
Thunderbird.
Spread the word, Thunderbird. All right. So until next week, I'm Steven saying goodbye. Goodbye. And here's Ed saying goodbye.
Ciao.
Ooh, little international flavor there. All right. I'm gonna save this.
Okay, let me get to mine here. El Stapo file.
And that was a little under.
Savo.
That one was a little under 30 minutes.
Yep, that's more like what I'm figuring they'll be.
Oh yeah, I agree. I definitely feel confident that we're going to be able to get these last two, episodes 3 and 4 done.
And then like we talked about, you can. I don't have any druthers about when you release these. They can be one a week. They can be one every 2 weeks if you want to spread them out. Whatever. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think if we try to do at least 4, record at least 4 every once a month when we get together.
Mm-hmm.
And I wait. Let me look at my calendar. So if I wait till, because I could put a trailer out on Wednesday the 30th, so that's a week from Wednesday.
And I was going to make a suggestion.
Okay.
April somewhere. April 1938 was in your notes. What happened then?
Yes, so typically we only get the cover date of issues, but for Action Comics #1, this was both on DCFandom.com and Wikipedia. It had a cover date of June, but it was published on April 18th.
And so my suggestion would be to release the first episode on that date, if it corresponds to a date, or in there somewhere. I know you want to do it on Wednesdays.
That's a Monday. It's not a day that I'm putting out just another fanboy, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, and I just think that's just a cool, whatever the word for doing some, whatever that word would be a good day to start it.
And frankly, the 18th is 4 weeks from now. So we can be recording.
We can record twice by then. Yeah,
exactly. So we could
you have a big fat can of episodes.
Exactly.
We're dudes. We're supposed to no, never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I suffer from this thing where whenever I create something, I want to get it out there as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I will struggle mentally sitting on these because if you don't, let me ask you this. If you don't mind, would you mind if I put them up on my Patreon a week early?
No, that's fine.
I just, cool. I didn't want to
offer
them to something where people are giving me money if you're part of the project as well.
It doesn't bother me at all, man.
Cool.
This the way I look at this is more your thing, and you're letting me guest on it. I don't. Yeah, I'm having a hell of a good time reading these. So,
me too. And I mentioned over there on the board that I've been toying with the idea of doing something like this for a long time. And there was a big part of me that didn't really want to do it by myself. It's
Yeah,
like I think these issues would be more fun if we had at least two people
sure,
talking
sure.
about it. And between you and me and anybody who watches this video on YouTube,
Oh,
I
yeah.
this just came out of the blue. It just hit me in the head. Sometimes I do the whole squirrel, thinking about something else. But I was listening. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but they had like 4 or 5 hosts. And within 20 minutes, I forgot who everybody was. It's like, okay, who is that talking now? And
Right, yeah.
the only one I knew was the woman, because the rest were guys.
Okay.
So it's like, I kind of prefer either single host or 2 host
Yeah.
podcasts, because then, it's easy to tell, to get those names down. In fact, do you listen to CGS anymore?
Every now and then.
Yeah.
That dude that they got on there that is the store owner, former store owner from New Jersey.
This is going out live. Remember that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a fan of his method of panel presence. I'll just put it that way. So,
yeah, I really don't listen either, but every once in a while, I think they've done 3 of them now. Peter and Brian get together and record that. Those are really fun.
To the most recent of those. Yeah, absolutely. Because now that feeds into that nostalgia, the way things used to be kind of stuff, and so not to take anything away from anyone else.
Yeah.
But honestly, I really lost a lot of interest about the time that Jamie D was no longer able to podcast.
Yeah.
And that was kind of and then, about soon after that, Deemer left. Peter wasn't there as much. Pants started hosting. And so there was a major change in the voices and in the way that the show felt. And, so that's about the time that I dropped off listening. Used to be, I started in the teens episodes. I would listen to every episode as soon as it came out, man. It was,
Yeah. I don't remember how far along they were when I started listening. Obviously it was before I started podcasting, because they, like many of us, they were a big influence.
Yes. We are part of their family of motivated podcasters.
We're part of the legacy that is CGS, because
absolutely.
There's a lot of us who wouldn't probably be thinking about podcasting if it wasn't for CGS.
Right.
And the fact that they built that community on the forums, and everybody was just so supportive of everybody else. It wasn't about, don't listen to them, I'm not going to help this person. It was everybody helped each other, gave advice. It was, that's why I started that Just Another Fanboy message board. I would like to see that coming back, but I don't know. We've gotten 6 members. So
it'll just take some time. But look how many people visit it.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of visitors.
We're getting 30 to 40 visitors every 24 hours. So, I mean, the people are there.
Yep.
They just haven't seen something yet that they want to chime in on. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Those of us who are members just have to keep posting.
Keep throwing stuff out there.
Something is gonna.
I even have no problem talking about something just to talk about it, even though it may not be something I necessarily like. If it'll get somebody else talking, and then I'll just, I'll back out of the room and close the door, let them talk.
And you never know what's gonna bring somebody on board. There was an episode of Just Another Fanboy I did talking about a series of books. I think I just talked about the first book, and I've always said that Just Another Fanboy is about comics and TV and books and movies and music, but mainly it's about the comics. And listen to this book, really enjoyed it, wanted to talk about it. And I have one of my small group of very loyal listeners came on board with that episode. He was just looking for who's, it's one of his favorite books. He was seeing who's talking about it, and he saw that I was, and he listened, and he's been there ever since.
Yep.
And you just never know. Let's see. Okay, mine is done saving.
Yeah, mine is. Let me see if I started it. I might have. No, I didn't start it back yet. Okay. And start. Yep.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Word, Thunderbird. Okay. But real quick, back to CGS. Yeah, the when I started listening, it was of course the original crew, Deemer and Peter and Jamie D. I don't think Pants had come on board at that point.
Okay.
You had Shane and
Shane. Yeah, Shane is the private
Kevin.
detective Batman
right?
lover.
I had no idea. It was like 2 years later, and I found out that he was like a freaking private detective, and I'm like,
yeah.
So
Shane
cool.
was the figure toy fan.
Yep.
Murd. How can we have not mentioned Murd yet?
Oh, the
Murd, the absolute encyclopedia of the group.
Yep.
Even more so, I think, than Peter. But of course, I doubt Pete would ever admit to that. But yeah, that's.
And I met Peter and Pants. We have a yearly convention in Kansas City, and they were doing that whatever year that was, because they would do their con circuit, but they would somewhat stick close to home,
right? Yeah.
And they would hit the big ones, San Diego and New York, but that year they had made some kind of vow or pact that they were going to hit as many cons around the country as they could. Not all of them, they would separate and do.
Yeah, they split up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Peter and Pants came out to Kansas City, and so I think my son was 8, 9 about that time, and I went specifically just so I could meet him, because I'd never met him face to face. I'd never gone to any of those, the CGS 100, 200, 300.
I met him at the episode 200 recording.
Nice.
Is where I first met him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's a pretty amazing thing that they built, and they're still, they're still doing it. So
it was something that you're not going to see again.
No.
So if you were not a part of that at that time, you missed an opportunity that just isn't going to be like that again. That which is sad, but on the other hand, I think it's kind of cool because I was a part of it, and so I can say and feel that. So yeah.
And there's it's back then, because of them and the community they built, you would often it's like you felt you knew who all the comic book podcasters were.
Yes.
It's you knew what was out there, and I almost every other day I'm running into a new comic book podcast, and I'm like, oh, this is a new show, I'll check it out. No, they've been around for 3 or 4 years. They're very popular, and it's just
really. My thinking is, well, I just now found them. They must not be that popular.
Well,
yeah. Not trying to slam anybody, but your outreach didn't reach this far.
Yeah, that's true. But I think a lot of it is because we have these, when it comes to marketing, I'll use that term, marketing.
We're
mirrored.
Yeah. It's like a spider. Yeah. Okay.
We've got what's supposed to be the most wonderful marketing tools available: Twitter, Facebook, and that crap don't work anymore.
No. What it ends up doing is it ends up making the shows very insular.
Yeah.
Those people who interact and listen do so.
Yeah.
Those people who I don't know why. I don't know if it's a timing thing or what it is, but those people who don't end up sitting on the periphery always. Every now and then they might chime in or what, but so there's this, there's your core, and then several layers out are others just kind of hovering around, and it stays that way. The CGS, and I think it was because of the boards, that core was huge.
Yeah.
It was like a gas giant core as opposed to the little metal rocky Mars core. It's like Jupiter. And you just, you couldn't help but be pulled in by the gravity of everything that was going on. It just it felt, and you just wanted to, and so you came in and you were part for, you were able to come in for 5, 6, 7 years and really be part of that show.
Yep.
So,
and Peter and Brian talked about it in this last episode they did, where it's like one of the things that CGS did, especially because of the boards, is you had people across the country that loved comics and maybe were uncomfortable talking about it. They didn't have people in their life they could talk to comics, talk about comics with, and they couldn't just hang out at a store all day and talk to people in a store about comics. And then here comes CGS, and here comes these boards, and I'm like, look at all these people across the country that love comics just as much as me. And friendship started, and more podcasts started. For me, the original 3 that I remember, what I always considered the big 3 back then was CGS, iFanboy, and Around Comics.
Okay.
And all 3 of those are still going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I never really listened to iFanboy. I'll be honest with you, but
I never did either. I knew it was out there.
Yeah,
but
I was always I enjoyed Around Comics. The fact that they actually got together in a comic book store and talked about stuff, and I enjoyed CGS. And I miss Quiet Panelologists at Work.
Yes,
it was one of my favorites. But I can't blame people too much these days for not interacting with shows, because I don't listen to an episode of stuff and then immediately sit down and fire off an email.
No, I don't.
It was easier when you had message boards and you could go in and read what everybody else is saying. That was part of it. It's like, you have your thoughts about the episode. You could go over to this message board, see what everybody else is saying. Hey, that person agrees with me, and I disagree with that person, and, and give your thoughts. I did recently send an email. Have you listened to the Naked Geek? It's one of the Geek Syndicate guys. You remember the Geek Syndicate from England? Yeah. One of those guys.
Monteith.
I think so. Trying to find it.
Right. Is that his name? Monteith.
Where's it at? Well, where's the
Barry Nugent and David Monteith, I think.
Yeah, it's David Monteith. And they're very short episodes. It's just him. Like the latest one that went up on Wednesday is 9 minutes long.
Oh, dude. Okay.
But he's a writer, and the way he speaks, and he's just really good at it. And from the first episode, I was hooked. I'm really enjoying these. So, and there aren't too many. I think the newest one is episode 19. So
okay, well, I'll give it a look and see.
It'd be a good one to jump. You could probably binge all of them in a day.
Probably,
they're short enough. So
cool.
Yeah, but there's just so many to listen to. Just so many, not enough time. All right, what are we doing here? Episode 3.
3.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll do the synopsis on this one. We'll just take turns. We'll go back and forth.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna start it up. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 3, Superman Battles Death Underground. The Superman Super Show is a presentation of the Just Another Fanboy podcast. Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Oh, hello. I'm Ed. Hello, Ed. Sorry.
Ed's an old man. You got to forgive him.
I was too busy pointing and trying to get my finger in the right place in the camera. This technology, camera, I podcast vocal when there is no pretty, or unpretty, but however you want to look at it. Yeah. So
I like these newfangled machines.
It is. It's like, wow.
So today we're going to look at a Superman tale from Action Comics number 3. This is entitled Superman Battles Death Underground, which is a wonderful title. And I immediately picture Superman wrestling with the Grim Reaper, but that's not what happens at all.
Something to know, and we haven't really pointed it out yet, is none of these stories, nor will they for a while, actually have a title. Everywhere you go,
Yeah.
the title of the story will be different because whoever wrote about it titled it.
Yeah.
So, because I have also the Blakely Mine Disaster as an alternate title, and I saw that maybe on the Grand Comics database when I looked up the book. That, so it's like all of these will have 2 or 3 or 4 titles because there's nothing official. So it's just like, well, let's call it, Although I will say, Superman Battles Death Underground is much better than the Blakely Mine Disaster. That sounds like something that comes around every year with an honorarium and memoriam and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
now I'm getting the titles from DCFandom.com, but I did notice that the front matter, the content area of the Superman in the Golden Age that we're reading does have titles, and they titled the story in issue 2 as Revolution in San Monte Part 2.
Okay.
And yeah, they titled this The Blakely Mine Disaster.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe I should be using that.
I don't really think it matters because I don't think that's official either. Because like I said, these didn't have titles.
Right.
So
yeah, I agree. And I do love the name Superman Battles Death Underground.
Yes, it's much more dramatic.
I would lean toward, if anything is official, it's going to be what is in this official DC publication.
Well,
but I'm not.
It's official because they said so, but not official because that's the way it always was. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. So, all right. So this one was, it's got a cover date of August of 1938, of course, published by DC Comics, written by Jerry Siegel, art by Joe Shuster. And let me tell you what happens.
This is another story that came in at 12 2/3 pages.
I wonder if that's just going to be the norm for a while. Also, we didn't mention it in episode 2, but Action Comics #1 features Superman on the cover.
Yes.
And then I don't know how many issues in we go until we get another Superman cover.
Right.
But none of these others feature Superman on the cover at all. And I have to assume that's because it's not until he becomes popular, when DC realizes that the main reason people are buying the book is for the Superman stories.
Well, but he got the first cover.
Yeah. That it's interesting how that
I read
out.
up to 6, like I said, and I know that he wasn't on the cover of 6 either. So up to 6, just the first issue.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So I'm gonna read through this synopsis.
Should we write a letter and tell him why not put Superman on the front cover?
Let's go back and retroactively do that. So yeah, I'm gonna read the synopsis. We'll talk about this issue. We'll finish up this episode, and then I think I'll be done for the night. We're not going to get through 4 episodes. Okay. All right. Where were we? Okay. There is a cave-in in the Blakely coal mines, and a miner is trapped. Superman makes his way to the mine and discovers that the rescue crew has been stopped by poison gas, by which he is unaffected. He rescues them as well as the trapped miner. The next day, he asks the miner, Stanislaw Kober, what he thinks caused the mine collapse. Kober says that everyone knew the mine was unsafe, but management did nothing to prevent the collapse. Thornton Blakely, the mine owner, says otherwise, claiming that Kober's own carelessness caused the collapse. Superman decides to sneak into the Blakely estate dressed as a miner. He finds a party going on and gets captured. Blakely lets him stay at the party because he's coming up with an idea. Superman will lead them all down into the mine where they will continue their party. Once they are all in the mine, Superman attacks the tunnel supports, causing the entire party to be trapped under a cave-in. Blakely remembers the safety devices he sets Blakely remembers the safety devices. He sets them off only to discover that they've rusted over. They attempt to dig their way out, but they soon get winded. Blakely curses himself for treating the miners so badly. With everyone else in the party collapsed, Superman tears down the barriers so that the rescue workers can save everyone. Several days later, Clark Kent once again interviews Thornton Blakely, who now reveals that he is going to start treating his workers better. And again, that synopsis was taken from DCFandom.com. Ed, what did you think of this story?
Okay, the story itself, much more cohesive than the second one, than the first one. So we're starting to get into a rhythm of how the comic book stories are going to be put together moving forward. You know, they're more getting their feet, their legs under them. Still quite a bit of jumpy kind of stuff. I thought I do like the name Stanislav Kober, because that sounds like a Western European immigrant kind of name. These are the late 30s, and so I was like, okay, a little bit of a genuineness there. You know,
and his speech patterns match that.
Mm-hmm. You almost want to say the name Thornton Blakely with your back teeth clenched. You know, Thornton Blakely.
Blakely.
Yeah. So you know, you get that from the name too. So I like that there's some thought being put into this kind of throwaway stuff. You know, names are kind of they are or they aren't. You know, so I like that. I don't understand why they wanted to continue the party in the mines. I kind of got lost there. You know, Blakely has to know what the conditions of the mines are.
Apparently he didn't. He thought it was totally safe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but it might be safe, but it's nasty, dirty, grubby, wet. You know, I mean, and so it's like that's where you want to take your money, people.
Yeah, it made me think of, we've seen it where, you know, it's like the rich people are like, oh, wouldn't it be amusing if we slum it for just a little bit? How droll, you know.
Go to the other side of the tracks and party. Yep. It's but so and so just this probably was the most cohesive of the stories we've read so far. So it was entertaining. We saw Superman do some Superman things. We saw that he is immune to poisonous gas, or whatever type of gas it was, if it wasn't poison, adding to the mythos of Superman. Other than that, everything in the story was the story itself. So good stuff. Still a couple, you know, what the heck's, not as many as before, but I liked it.
Yeah.
It's continuing on what we've seen started in the first one and moving into the second issue and now the third issue. You know, you definitely are seeing, I think, some momentum. Is this the first one? Let me see. Yeah, this is the first of several stories, which we will talk about next time, where Superman assumes an identity other than Clark Kent. He pretends to be someone or something he is not. And we see it first here as he pretends to be a lowly, and I say that tongue in cheek, a lowly miner.
He did disguise himself as a soldier.
That's right.
In the previous issue.
Yes, he enlisted.
Yes. After forcing the other guy to enlist.
Yes.
He too enlists, yeah.
So,
but it was because it didn't continue. There wasn't a cliffhanger in the second story. This is an all new. It starts and stops. It's a done in one. So it was kind of a fun little adventure where basically Superman teaches a rich guy a lesson and teaches all his rich friends a lesson. And there is one line out of this thing that I want to read when Clark goes to see the guy at his business, and he's basically telling him that the mine seems to be unsafe. And he says, the guy says, there are no safety hazards in my mind, but if there were, what of it? I'm a businessman, not a humanitarian.
Wow.
And it's refreshing to see them actually admit it. You know? Because I'm sure most businessmen today think the same exact way. This guy he's not afraid to say it though. He's just like, whatever. I'm not going to do anything about it.
I'm trying to make money. What do I care?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Exactly. I'm not in the business of making sure my people are safe.
Right.
I'm in the business of making money. And yeah, of course he learns his lesson.
And he learned it pretty well.
Yeah. And I have to wonder though, what Superman's original plan was, because he sneaks into the party dressed as a miner, which is weird. I don't know where he thinks he was going there, but obviously he had a plan, because at one point they talk about how he has to quickly change his plans because now they're going down into this mine. So I would love to know what his original plan was, because the plan he had to then make up on the spot turned out very well, because again, he was able to teach them all a lesson. And when they're down there in the mine and they're all trapped, and immediately one of the rich guys goes after Blakely, is that his name?
Yeah, yes,
he
Blakely.
just goes, I'm gonna kill you. You know, he just
for bringing us down here. It's your fault.
Yeah, right. I mean, it goes to rage so fast. I mean, they just turn on him so quickly. And then there's a moment where Blakely is trying to get the miner Superman to do something about, well, can't you do this? And he's basically like, I'm ready to die. I don't know about you. And Blakely's like, oh no. And yeah, it's so funny. Superman is hardcore in these issues.
Yes. I think the kids say suffers no fools.
Yes.
He's wow.
And it continues with this. It's obviously Jerry Siegel. Again, from what I understand about his upbringing, he was Jewish. So was Joe Shuster. They weren't. He didn't come from. They were middle class or low class family. Same with Schuster. And so here's another, this is, I think, might be the first example of them actually going up against, corporate America in essence. Right. But still, it's just Superman is the guy that's going to take on the bullies for the people who can't. That's kind of what they've established so far in these first 3 issues, is that because of course he's not fighting supervillains. He's fighting gangsters and corrupt politicians and soldiers who torture other soldiers, and in this case, a businessman who doesn't care that who he thinks it's safe, but you know what? If it's not, it doesn't matter.
I don't think he thought it was safe.
Well, the only reason I think he does is because that moment where he goes to the whatever safety mechanism that he has in place, and finds out it doesn't work. I don't think that he thinks that his people are working in prime conditions, but he seemed surprised that one little piece wasn't working.
Perhaps.
Yeah. But we also know that because he says it. My stuff is up to snuff. My stuff is safe. But if it wasn't, who cares? Exactly. That's not my problem.
Yeah. So.
I'm not a humanitarian, which I don't know when some of these labor laws were passed as far as keeping workers safe. I'm assuming it was after this at some point, so. But yeah, that my eyebrows raised when I got to that line.
Yeah, that is definitely the kind of behavior that you are not going to see represented today.
No. And I would have not at all been upset if Superman at that point would have just smashed his face after he said that.
Yep.
But yeah, it is a more cohesive story. I think the art, it's good. It's still coming together. There are a lot of moments though when and I kind of saw it in the second issue as well. When Superman is in disguise, and then you see him with other miners, or in the second story, you see him with other soldiers. You can't immediately pick him out.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't have that distinctive look.
Right.
But that's not necessarily a Golden Age thing. I mean, you get a few John Byrne characters together without costume, and you may not necessarily be able to pick out Johnny Storm and Captain America. You know?
So
yeah. No Lois in this one.
Nope, not at all.
I don't even think the paper. Oh, well, the paper's only involved because he finds out through the news wire about the collapse. And in fact, he is, as soon as it comes across the news wire, please, Chief, let me handle this assignment. And the guy says, go to it, Kent. And then the very next panel, he's racing across, running. A streaking figure speeds towards Blakely Town at a terrific pace that not even the fastest auto or airplane could duplicate.
Running everywhere.
That silly cape behind him. So, yeah, I think as far as these three stories that we've talked about so far in these first three episodes, the one thing that ties them all together is, again, Superman. And it says it in the first issue, champion of the oppressed. That's kind of his job. And there's a book. I'm gonna try to look it up real quick here. Okay, so there, you know who Brad Meltzer is?
Yes.
He's of course he's written some comics, but he's also a novelist. He wrote a book called Book of Lies. I think that's the one, and it features like the history. Is this the one?
Conspiracy stuff.
Yes. Let's see. Let me just read these two lines. Okay, so in chapter 4 of the Bible, Cain kills Abel and is the world's most famous murderer. But the Bible is silent about one key detail: the weapon Cain used to kill his brother. That weapon is still lost to history. In 1932,
I thought he used a rock.
Well, and if you believe Supernatural, he used the jawbone of an animal.
Oh,
I don't know. I've never read that part of the Bible.
Yeah, I thought he killed him with a rock. Okay, maybe not.
It goes on. In 1932, Mitchell Siegel was killed by 3 gunshots to the chest. While mourning, his son dreamed of a bulletproof man and created the world's greatest superhero, Superman. And there's a lot of Superman mythos and behind the creation of Superman in that book. It's been a while since I've read it, but
okay.
It's a really interesting read if anybody ever wants to look it up. Book of Lies by Brad Meltzer. But because we're talking about Superman being the champion of the oppressed, and that coming from the mind of Jerry Siegel, who probably grew up being, first of all, he comes from people, the Jewish people who probably, especially at the time, were not looked upon great. And then with everything that was going on in the world at the time, it's like he wanted to create something to make the little man, the downtrodden, those people have somebody to look up to, somebody that would stand up for them when they can't do it themselves. So unfortunately that person was fictional, but still, that seems to be the theme going on so far.
And Siegel and Schuster were not the only people in their situation that did that.
Yeah, that's true.
At this time, it seems that comic book creation was a multiply used method of doing that. I can't even say necessarily how frequently, but if you look over the history of the startings of comic books, particularly at this time, the late 30s, early 40s, there are a lot of gentlemen, at least, who are in very, very similar positions for a myriad of reasons,
Yep.
who are creating stories, writing, and artists doing that, making heroes. And that's who we read now. So it's, I would be interested in, and I'm sure it has to be out there, but I would be interested in someone who has taken a look a couple steps back and looked over the entire scene at that time and written about the underpinnings of the origin of the comic book in the US. And because there are so many similarities across the board that you have to be able to draw broad inferences about the time and the situation.
Yeah.
And maybe I just have missed that book, but I think it would make for some interesting reading.
Yeah, it might be out there. I don't know about it. If y'all know about it, the Superman Super Show, gmail.com.
Yeah, everybody, books talking about particular creators and to take a step back from the particular, and let's look at all, I don't know, 25 creators in the late 30s or whatever time frame you want to use to position it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Of course, just depends on what was known to those folks back then and what still survives as far as.
Well, I mean, you have all of these individual stories.
Yeah, that's true.
Why not read all the individual stories and put those connecting things together?
Yep. Yeah, good point. All right, that's your homework, Ed.
No,
write that book.
I don't do homework. No homework.
Yeah, me neither.
I can go in there on my and I say this as humbly as it can possibly be said. I can go on my bookshelf in here and pull one of 4 bachelor's degrees off and show you I did my homework.
Yeah. I'm done.
Those days are over. I did it, and
I did that. It's done. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say about this issue?
Let's see. Issue 3. No, sir.
Okay. Well, then let's wrap this sucker up. I want to thank everyone for listening to this. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, you can do that at the Superman Super Show at gmail.com. And if you want to help the show in any way, you can rate us on Apple Podcasts or just generally tell all your friends about us. So until next week, I'm Steven saying goodbye. Goodbye. And here's Ed saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yay. Okay.
Goodbye. Or however you used to say it on AOL. I can't remember. It's been so long. Goodbye. Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
When you close like your email or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodbye.
Now, these notes are a Google Doc.
Yes.
So you can just continue to add to it. That's not a problem.
Yep. All right. So we'll get together in a few weeks and we'll crank out a couple more episodes.
Okay. Let's see, that was 3.
That was 3.
So I've read 4, 5, and 6. I'll read 7 to have 4 ready. Okay.
Okay.
And just let me know. Wednesdays and Thursdays I can't, but honestly, any other day I can.
Okay. Cool.
And it looks like it's going to be 2-ish hours. I mean, it won't be, because half of it was that first episode, and it won't be that way again. So
right. Yeah, I think we should try to limit it to about 2 hours. I know that right now the reason I'm cutting off at this point is our dog is in the bedroom with my wife, and sometimes he just is very unruly at this time of night and just likes to bark, and nothing makes him happy. And I think it's just it's driving her crazy. I don't blame her. So
he doesn't want to be in that situation. I understand.
Yeah. So, all right.
I was married once. No, I'm sorry. It's not story time with it. My fault.
Yeah. I'll set up a folder out on Google Drive and share it with you. And then you can just upload those MP3s to that folder.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll get that to you tomorrow, probably.
Okay. And you have access to everything else, covers that you'll want to post and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I got all that.
Okay. Yeah, it's out there a million different places. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just a lot of times I just do screenshots on my phone or my tablet. So
okay.
all right. Thanks, sir. It's good talking to you.
Yes, sir. You too. Had a lot of fun. I enjoyed
I did too. I think we got something going here.
Yep. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully everybody will be able to hear that as they listen.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All righty, man.
See you later, sir.
All righty.
Bye.
Ciao.
I'm going to end the broadcast.